With our God, his physics are not our physics. What do I mean by that? That normally, if you place an object on top of another object that is heavy, it will weigh it down. So if I were to put a big old weight on my shoulders and try to squat it, if it was too heavy, it would crush me. But in God's physics, the supernatural physics, if you will, that God does something profound with us as humans. St. Augustine talks about this gospel that we have today, that when we take on the yoke of Jesus, when we put that yoke that is his love and his law and his truth, when we follow him and we cast our cares on him and we put that on our shoulders, rather than being weighed down more and being more stressed and have experienced more suffering and more pain, that Jesus actually takes that weight off of us when we put his yoke on our shoulders. So what does that look like, that God takes the weight off of our shoulders? Well, I know for myself that when I'm experiencing suffering, that I'm overwhelmed, that I have a lack of peace in my life, inevitably, I get to a point where, gosh, I have to turn to the Lord. And so I seek God in prayer, whether it be praying the Psalms or the Rosary or just a spontaneous prayer. And I turn to God, cast my cares on him, and I take on his yoke. I don't try to take on this burden by myself. And what does God do? But he takes the yoke off. He takes the weight off of my shoulders. And Jesus says this very thing in the gospel today. Come to me, all you who labor and are burdened, and I will give you rest. Take my yoke upon you and learn from me, for I am meek and humble of heart. And so today, Jesus is inviting us to take on his yoke, to not try to carry our burdens and our sufferings and all of our anxieties on our own shoulders, but to bring them to him, to take his yoke, his love, his truth, his law on our shoulders, to follow him and cast our cares on him. And rather than being weighed down more by relying on him, the weight will be taken off of our shoulders. That doesn't mean that we'll be relieved of all suffering. It doesn't mean we'll be relieved of everything, but it means that Jesus will give us the peace that only he can give.